materials for cost of goods. Knowing the cost of materials is, of course, a really key aspect of cost of goods estimation. We at Rondex provide to our subscribers a library of from 350 to 400 commonly used reagents and solvents, which saves you a tremendous amount of time in putting together a cost of goods estimate. But there will always be a need for estimators to add new compounds to the library because these are new compounds that are being made, or these are compounds that are new to you that we may not have we probably won't have in our library. So let me just show you how to go about doing that. So first of all, let's go into the materials segment. Okay, so here you see the library of raw materials that are available for use for any project in the client. So there's quite a number of these, and these are updated as you go. Now, all of these that come from Rondex are global, so they're available to everybody. You can have raw materials that are only used for your project also, and that's not uncommon. But I would strongly recommend that you consider making them global for use in other clients. This will save your colleagues and possibly yourself a lot of time in the future. Vice versa, things that are starting materials, I suggest that you keep them only to a particular program because it just really can clutter up the entire operation. It will make everything global. So I strongly all these need the global key off. So let's go through the steps that it takes to bring a new raw material into the library. So first of all, we're going to just bring in kind of a hypothetical raw material for this program. So here's a ChemDraw structure. I'm just going to select it like you would, copy it, and then over here I'm going to paste it. So here it goes. So you have the structure, you have the name, you have all the kinds of things that you might be provided. In this particular case, our customer didn't provide us with much information about this compound. And I don't need to have a lot of information about this compound for an estimate. So I can just call it compound 1. That's fine. Molecular weight, required field. If this was, I also state the state of the compound. So in this case, it's a solid. But when we're liquid, then the density would become a required field. Another required field is you need to define it as is it one of these? Is it an API, intermediate, a pre-formulated API, a starting material, and other compounds? These are typically things like expensive compounds that are really not components of the final API. For example, catalysts, other things like that, or raw material. These are things that are less expensive that you don't want to call out specifically as you go forward, but you do want to record the value. So in this case, this is a starting material. This will be a component of the final product. You'll see that that's really all I have to enter in order to have a raw material that I can use in a starting material that I use in my thing. I like to add the additional information. I like to put in the molecular formula because it can be very useful when I go to search for it in the future. So I like to add when it's available to me. If I happen to have a CAS number, that's kind of nice to put that in. That's often not available for these advanced intermediates, so that we won't worry about it in this case. Let me go back to this. Something else I like to do sometimes is I like to put in the SMILE sequence. So again, I'll do it right from ChemDraw. So here we go. I'm going to copy as, put in the SMILE like that. Just get that out of the way. And I'll put that in here. What's kind of nice about that is that I can see if I like the structure that's available from ChemSpider. So this automatically goes to the internet. If ChemSpider happens to have that structure available to it, and it does, so I'm going to choose to keep that structure. In this case, I'm going to save this now. Already compound by that name of 1, so I have to call it 1A. So there happens to be another compound that I already named 1, So it wouldn't let me use that summer phone for 1A for now. So now let's enter some prices. So this information provided to me by my client, and they tell me that for tens of kilos, they expect this compound to cost about $1,700. They also told me that the metric ton, they expect this to cost some $500. So we'll put that down as well. And I'm going to make this the default for this program here. Now, just to show you another thing, is that if the units of measure for a raw material happen to be in other units, say it's in volume units instead, because this is a liquid, this will translate it through the density directly into kilos again. If it's in grams, it'll translate it into dollars per kilo. Everything is done in dollars per kilo in the cost estimation. If you wish to have a different currency used, we can accommodate that. But this standard version is based on dollars per kilogram. So we have that. So now I'm going to also say I don't know which vendor it was, but just for our use, I'm going to call this Albemarle, so that I don't confuse myself in the future. But just for our purposes, I'm going to say that this was produced by Albemarle, and we can and that becomes very handy in the future when we go to look for compounds made by that vendor. Again, I strongly recommend that this not be checked, but if you should want to, check that as being global. And now that this compound, when I save it, becomes available in all the other projects in this client, or all the other projects in the collection of various things that your colleagues may be using. In this case, for starting material, I did not make that global. I will keep that to this particular project. With that, I've concluded how one would go about creating a material.